All right, so my experience in the military has been that most soldiers or service members from other branches who get in trouble, the underlying cause of that misconduct has been alcohol related offenses, whether it's they get a DUI or whether they violated an order because they were intoxicated, or whether or not they got into a relationship that they shouldn't be in because they were drunk. Most of the misconduct that happens that I see is alcohol related, which begs the question, right? What is the problem in those cases? Is it the misconduct, or is it the problem with alcohol? For me personally, I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I know firsthand what happens with your thought process when you're intoxicated and when you're in the cycle of addiction. And one of the things that I want to bring to the table is, as a firm, I want to address the issue of the underlying issue of alcoholism and how to get treatment, how to help that problem versus just the outcomes, right? Because if we don't attack the problem, today it might be a GOMAR, tomorrow it might be a divorce, the next day, it might be fired from a civilian job. Those problems that are related to alcoholism are going to live, right?
And I think that most commands don't see it from that perspective. They have a file of misconduct in front of them and don't look at that underlying issue, and it's never dealt with. Our firm has a unique perspective in that we can spot that issue right away, incorporate it into the case, and take those issues to the command so they're all taken into account. Because you're right, that is most of the time an alcoholic is going to end up in a misconduct situation because they were intoxicated at the time.
Right. For the benefit of the client, just from a very base level human perspective, it's important, I think, that you sit down and have a very eye-to-eye conversation, a very realistic conversation, that this is not about the present instance of overcoming the investigation, overcoming the act of misconduct, or dealing with the situation in the present, but this is a lifelong consequence. This is a life decision that you are somewhat in a fork in the road. If you don't treat the alcoholism, there's going to be further misconduct. There's going to be further lifelong problems. So it's important that you have that conversation with the client. Use the Army resources that are at hand through SUD-C or counseling for free, as opposed to using those things when you get out.
Right. And one of the things that I personally find effective in representing clients who have an underlying drinking or alcohol problem is really getting them to the door of treatment, right? As a recovering alcoholic, you can't force anyone to recover. The only one who can want to recover is that alcoholic. Having the conversation with the client to help them to have that epiphany to understand that they need to do something for themselves is a real important component of what we do as counselors of law, not just attorneys at law. And I think, sometimes these soldiers and sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, Guardians, they don't necessarily understand they have a drinking problem until that misconduct pops up and it's in their face that, oh yeah, this is a problem. And sometimes law firms will only deal with the problem and not the underlying issues. And we as a full service firm, we want to address those underlying issues. And I find that very important difference between what we do as a firm and what a lot of other firms do when addressing misconduct.